Hi, I'm Chris Cooper. Welcome to the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Thanks for joining us. Today, the Bee Whisperer is here to show us how he relocates a wild bee colony. And although we may try to adopt a live and let live policy when it comes to insects, there are a few like mosquitoes and fire ants that we humans find it hard to get along with. So today, Mr. D is here to give us tips on dealing with mosquitoes and other insect pests. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South, so stay with us.
This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is David Glover. David is the Bartlett Bee Whisperer, and Mr. D is here. Thanks for joining me. All right, so a while ago, we noticed a swarm of bees in a dead hollow tree here at the WKNO studios. So we called David to relocate them. So what's the proper term? Is it a colony, a hive, or a swarm of bees?
Good question. A lot of people use the term hive and colony as synonymous. It's not. Hive is actually the physical structure that the bees live in, and a colony is the family structure, the queen, the workers, and the drones. Okay. And a swarm is actually the reproduction of a colony. So the old queen leaves the hive, takes half the bees, and they're looking for a new home. And that swarm doesn't have a home.
Now, what's the importance of relocating a wild bee colony?
There are a couple of them. One, the relocation of the bees, it gets them away from people who are afraid of bees.
Right.
Yeah, don't want to get stung. But for us, it's survivor stock. The wild bees have a natural resistance to a lot of the diseases that the foreign bees don't. And so survivor stock, they're existing out there in nature, they do well for us. The other reason is because we're losing our bees, and the more bees we can bring back into farms, the better our agriculture can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, so how do you relocate a colony? Walk us through that.
With this colony, because they're actually ensconced in a tree, we have to entice the bees out of the tree. Well, the bees are going to do that naturally every morning when the sun comes up. They're going to go out to gather their groceries, their pollen, their nectar. Right. And when they come back, we have to keep them from going in. So we built a trap-out cone on the tree. The bees come out, they go through the cone, and when they come back, they go to the opening of the tree, not the opening of the cone. Okay. So it's like a big fence. They can't see the end. And so when they come back loaded with pollen and nectar, they're looking for a place to offload. Located close to the bees is a hive box that has a queen, it has some frames of brood, and it smells like their home. And so they go to it. And because they're bringing food into the hive, the other bees will let them in. If they were coming without food, they would be considered robbers and they'd have a fight out front. But they're coming with pollen and nectar. They go in, and over a period of about 6 to 9 weeks, that process continues until all the bees leave the tree and move into the box.
Wow. So once they move into the box, then you show up and you...
Well, we'll put a trap-out screen on the front of the box, a migratory screen, and we'll remove the box. We'll screen over the hole so nothing else moves in, and then the tree guys can come in and get rid of that dead tree.
Wow. So how long does that process take?
Typically, we're looking at 9 weeks. And the reason 9 weeks is because the queen is continuing to lay eggs inside the tree. Her workers live for about 6 weeks. So after a period of 6 weeks, all the bees that have come out have now started recognizing the box as their new home. Technically, we pull a cone off, those bees from the box would go into the tree and rob out any of the honey, any pollen inside there, and take it away with us. If it was a home, we'd do that. But because it's a tree, we're looking at getting down before it falls on a car.
Okay. So there is honey.
There is
in
honey.
The tree.
There is honey in the tree. There's honey. If there are honey bees, odds are there's honey, be it in the hive box, a tree, or even a house.
Good, impressive.
Winnie the Pooh was right.
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh is always right.
Wow, okay. Now where did the bees come from to begin with?
Good question. Back when the United States was formed, we did not have honeybees naturally. We did have natural pollinators, leafcutters, bumblebees, the ester bees, but we didn't have honeybees. The Europeans brought them with them.
Okay.
In management of their hives, sometimes the bees would leave. They would swarm out. Bees feel congested if they don't have enough room to build more wax. And so the old queen leaves with half the hive and they go find a new place to live. Bees here in the tree probably came from a beekeeper who wasn't really paying attention early in the spring, or a natural swarm from the trees out in nature. And so they moved into the tree. They're looking for a hollow spot. And the trees are hollow, especially if you got a knothole like that one.
Yeah, and I saw that. It's pretty good sized hole. Wow, so what if you had these bees in your attic?
If you had
what would that process be like? Man.
If there were bees in the attic, the process in that is a little bit different because we actually have to remove the comb. If we don't remove the comb from the house, then another swarm coming, looking for a place to live, would smell the existing comb and think furnished apartment. So same price, all they have to do is just move in. Or if we left it there, all we got out was the bees, the wax would begin to melt. The wax is maintained by the temperature of the bees. They maintain the temperature in the hive.
Okay.
If the wax gets too hot, it melts and the honey starts dripping through your walls. Ants move in, roaches move in, you start having a lot of mess. So we cut the comb out and we vacuum up what bees are left in the hive after the comb is gone. And all that goes back out to the farm. The combs go in the box, in the hive, and that's home for them because it smells like home.
Right.
The bees that have been vacuumed get added back to that box. It smells like home, they go right in.
Wow. And we're talking an actual vacuum.
An actual vacuum, but the bees don't actually go into the vacuum.
Okay.
The vacuum is hooked up to a chamber that the bees get sucked into, and they have room to move around in there. They have foundation that they can crawl on, so you can get about 15,000, 20,000 bees into one of those. Yesterday's was, 3.
Wow.
So about 60,000 bees.
Okay. Well, look, while we have just a little time left, how did you become interested in bees?
Oh, I've always been interested in bees. I grew up on a farm.
Okay.
We had cotton, we had soybeans, we had all the garden stuff. So we knew we needed the bees.
Right.
But about 4 years ago, my daughter asked a question about bees and how they made honey. I took her to a friend's house who had bees, and while we were there, her bees swarmed out. And I'm watching and think, this is just crazy. And I watched them go up into a pine tree and started thinking, if I had a 5-gallon bucket, a long pole, I could capture them. And I did. And from that point, I was addicted.
Wow.
It is addiction.
It's addiction. Hence, now you're the Bartlett Bee Whisperer. How about that?
I learned a lot. I mean, there's more to beekeeping than just going out and capturing bees.
Sure.
You do have to study, you do have to learn, and the best thing you can do is find an old beekeeper that you can sit and ask questions of. Mentors work.
Okay. And how about, can they join the local bee society?
The local society here is the Memphis Area Beekeepers Association. We've got several hundred here.
Wow.
And the average age, in my mind, is around 62.
Wow.
So we've got some old beekeepers who know a lot. And we need new beekeepers. We talk about losing bees, but we're also losing beekeepers.
Okay.
It's hard to get youth interested in doing something that is work, but also it's going to sting you. They will sting you eventually.
Thank you, David. That was really good information. We appreciate that.
I appreciate y'all.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Mr. D, we just got through talking about the honeybees. Now let's talk about the mosquitoes.
I tell you.
There seem to be a lot of mosquitoes out there.
You know, and you mentioned we have a hard time getting along with mosquitoes and fire ants. Well, I put them in two totally different categories. And the reason is mosquitoes are hunting me. They're looking for
hunters.
me, and they come looking for a meal, and it makes them no difference where I am or what I'm doing.
Right.
They're coming and they're going to bite me.
Yeah.
Fire ants, on the other hand, can be considered beneficial because they eat other insects. They're really not coming for me. They're defending their home when I step on the fire ant mound. So they're really not out looking for me. So mosquitoes, we try to, we don't like mosquitoes. No. I don't like mosquitoes at all. And this has been a tough year with all the rain that we've had. There's been a lot of standing water. And, what does it take? 4 days for a mosquito larvae
3 to 4 days is what it is.
To mature. So, if you got standing water, in buckets and pails and tires and things around your house, you can pour all that out all you want to. But with all of the low-lying areas we have in Shelby County and the surrounding area, there's standing water everywhere, and so we're going to continue to have mosquitoes, and you can do a good job of controlling them in your landscape, and one puff of wind out of the west or southwest will blow you in a whole new crop. With all that being said, we need to try to kill them when we can, and we need to try to avoid having standing water around. We've got out of our red book, some interesting, some good information about mosquitoes, and the adults will rest on shrubs and weeds and things like that around your house. Okay. So if you don't have any of those real close to your house, you want to have them resting there. But that is where you can direct your pesticides if you want to spray, on shrubs and weeds and things like that, around your house. If you do have ornamental, bird baths and things like that, pools, hardscape in your landscape or a pond by your house, be sure that you use the BT for mosquitoes. The larvae are the easiest things to treat because they can't fly off. And if you put the Bacillus thuringiensis for mosquitoes, and I think we have a couple of mosquito bits, mosquito dunks, contains the Bacillus thuringiensis israeliensis. It's a lot of sisses in there.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But that will, break the life cycle in your surrounding area. And then if you're going to have a cookout or something, then you might want to go out and put out methylprene, torpedo, pyrethrin, any of the pyrethrin sprays, and there are foggers that might give you some temporary relief. Flying insect killers, if you want to shoot them from a distance, that has pyrethrins in it, and that'll take them out. But pretty much, by all means, another difference between mosquitoes and fire ants is they carry diseases. As far as I know, I don't know of any diseases that fire ants carry that will affect us, but mosquitoes carry several.
Yes.
And West Nile virus is one of the most common, and along with yellow fever and a ton of others that they carry, malaria and things like that. But in our area, West Nile is the thing that we're most concerned with. So if you're going to be outside, it's a good idea to use repellents that include DEET. And research has shown that 15% concentration of DEET is just as effective as the 45 or 50%.
Okay,
probably a little safer to use on your skin and for younger children. And I think you can use it from children 2 years and above. You can use the lighter concentrations of DEET. But you can get this in sunscreens that have it in it, and a lot of different formulations. But around a 10 or 15% concentration of DEET will do a good job of repelling these insects.
All right.
That Thermacell works, that you see in some of the sporting goods stores.
I've seen that.
Products that have the butane deal, and those actually work also.
Okay. Quickly, let's talk about some beneficial versus our bad bugs.
Oh man, beneficial. We just talked about the most beneficial insect, in my opinion, is honeybees. Because of all the pollination that they do, without honeybees, we would have a hard time coming up with enough food to eat in this world. And you can't say enough good things about honeybees.
Right. I'll throw one in there. 85% of plant life exists because of pollination. And without the honeybees and the other pollinators, we lose those things that convert our CO2 to oxygen. So we need them to breathe, not just eat.
So they're good for us.
That's right. Back when I used to do Master Gardener training, I had a
Yeah.
slide, and
I remember that.
And I have a copy of that slide here. But the main thing I wanted to throw out here is we have over 1 million species of insects, and they've been around for 300 million years.
Wow.
And so far, there's only one species of humans, Homo sapiens, and we've only been around for a measly 3 million years. But of the insects that are out there, we've got several that we consider beneficial.
Okay.
And then we've got several that we consider pests. Most of them are just there.
Right.
You know, they're just filling their niche in the ecosystem. But honeybees is probably the most common
Yeah.
and probably one of the most beneficial insects because of the pollination. The other beneficials are beneficial mainly because they feed on insects that we consider bad.
the bad
You got
bugs.
one back there behind you, a lady
Yeah.
beetle. Lady beetle
Lady
is one of the most common ones. Syrphid fly is a
Yeah.
beneficial insect that you see a lot of this time of the year. Some folks call them hover flies. Some folks call them corn flies. They just kind of hover around. They look a little bit like a little bee because they yellow and black stripes on them, but they don't bite you. And
hovering.
Syrphid fly larva is a voracious feeder, especially on aphids and soft-bodied insects. Lacewings is another good one. The parasitic wasps that are out
Yeah.
there that put the cocoons on the back of tomato hornworms, tobacco hornworms
Yeah.
are good insects. So when you have a choice and you have to apply pesticides, I recommend using the BTs, those that are not a problem with beneficial insects.
Agreed.
Be careful using pesticides around honeybees. If you use any, be sure to talk to the beekeeper, and there are things that you can do that mitigate that risk a little bit.
All right, we appreciate that information, Mr. D. Now here's our Q&A session. And Mr. David, you can jump in there with us.
Okay.
All right, feel free. First, we have a question from Seth in Arlington. A few weeks ago, I noticed that some of the leaves on my oak tree have turned tan and almost transparent. There were a few small patches, but the rest of the tree looks healthy. It does not seem to be spreading. What is it? Should I do anything about it? You can see it there on the screen. We have it here, Mr. D. I took a look at it. It's a pin oak, first and foremost. But here's the thing about our pin oaks. We're actually recommending that you don't plant any more pin oaks because pin oaks get the bacterial leaf scorch. And the vector for bacterial leaf scorch would be the leaf hopper. I did scan it. I didn't see any leaf hoppers on there, of course, but you know they do extract, plant juice, out of the cells, and that's what actually spreads the bacteria leaf scorch. So that's what you see there on some of those leaves.
I was going to pull my hand lens out. You've already done that.
Yeah, I've already. It's always good to keep your hand lens
You
around.
got it.
But yeah, that's what I've seen it a few
Bacterial
times this year. Again, there's nothing that the homeowner can use to correct that problem. Nothing.
Bad problem.
It's a bad problem. But that's why, again, we're saying don't plant any more pin oaks.
They're pretty.
Because of the bacterial leaf scorch. Oh, pretty trees.
Go with one of the other oaks.
Yeah, go with another oak and you'll be just fine. Okay? Here's our next email question. It's from Lynn. She writes, I always note the growth of new fruits in my vegetable garden, and lately I've noticed their disappearance. Almost every morning I find another infant-sized squash or zucchini is gone. Whatever is eating these early growth plants is doing it at night. Also, I noticed some stems being cut clean off on the same plants and others. How can I save the newly growing squash / zucchini plants? What say you, Mr. D? He says.
I'd guess that it's a squirrel, even though squirrels aren't active at night. They are active early in the morning and late in the evening, and I doubt if this person is out there watching all the time, and they're very fast during the daytime. But it could be a raccoon.
Yeah.
If they don't mind the little prickly things on the
prickly
squash,
Right.
What do you think?
I don't know. I've watched turtles eating
Turtles?
my strawberries. I've never seen them in squash, but when they end up biting the stem, I mean, it's a clean cut, and they will eat through the evening.
It's some little critter out there
I
that's
know
actually
rabbits
getting it at night.
and deer
Oh,
might be a problem. You might be surprised that we do have deer in this urban area, and coyotes we also have in this area that will eat fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
And so there, you know, you may want to put your game camera up. Let's see if we can catch that critter in the process. See what,
That'd be cool.
what you got.
That would be pretty good.
Could be a lot of things.
Yeah, it could be any little critter.
Does your neighbor like squash? They may like tender squash.
That would
Could
be
be
a
the
clean,
neighbor, huh?
clean cut there.
Now, what about the clean cut on the squash? You know what I thought about?
What's that?
What about the vine board? Does the vine board make a clean cut? I know it, gets inside of the
Yeah,
vine,
and
but
it's
not a
all-
clean. It's not a clean cut.
No, it's
you know,
not a
from the
clean
plant
cut.
itself, from the mother plant.
It would, bore in toward the base of the plant, and as it's feeding up through the plant, that plant would just wilt
Yeah,
down.
just
So
collapses. Yeah.
that would look totally different.
Yeah.
But clean cuts, when I think of clean cuts, I think groundhogs, I think rabbits, I think deer, because when they
Rabbits for
nip
sure, I
it,
think, yeah.
It's
But
the
I've never
front teeth.
known of rabbits eating. But if it's small enough squash, they might.
It's the incisors that make the clean cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, rabbit. Think about that. Okay. All right, so there you have it, Lynn. I hope we helped you with that. All right, here's the next email from Roger. Oh, I like this one. I have been doing something for years to control moles, and guess what? It works. Run this by Mr. D to see what he thinks. I place half chewed up juicy fruit gum into the run, about 4 inches deep. The mole chews the gum and chokes. No more moles afterwards. It sounds unpleasant, but appears effective. Mr. D, do you care to comment at all on this tactic? Keep it clean, y'all.
Sure, I'll comment on it.
Come
And,
on, Mr. D.
First, if a tactic works for you, who am I to,
Hey.
say, if it
I'm with you
works,
on that.
it works for you, then congratulations. But, however, in my experience, and by the way, I've caught 7 this year. I caught
Wow.
14 last year. I've caught number 7 last week. I'm going to try to catch more than 14 this year. Using a trap, and the only thing that the University of Tennessee recommends in the Red Book is using traps. As far as the juicy fruit gum, I've heard that my whole
I've heard
career.
that. I've heard that.
When I first started doing extension work in the late 70s, I heard about that. But Auburn University, who I worked for at that time, did not have that in their recommendation, and nor does the University of Tennessee. And the reason is when you look at the biology of a mole, you don't often see moles sitting around chewing gum. Moles are carnivorous.
All right.
They eat live critters. They like grub worms. Their favorite food is earthworms. And, about 90% of their diet is earthworms. And unless that juicy fruit gum looked a lot and tasted a lot like an earthworm or a grub worm or some kind of living critter, I doubt very seriously that it would, chew it. Now moles are smart though. And they, even if you have human scent on their trap that you've got, it might scare the mole off.
Right.
Because they're smart enough to, apparently they don't like unusual scents. And I would guess that juicy fruit is not the typical thing a mole would come crawling up on in a tunnel.
think
And he
so.
might, when he comes up on that, he may put it in reverse and scoot on out of there. So
That's what I
maybe
was
it's a
wondering.
pretty
Because
decent
the gum has a
repellent.
scent, those juicy fruit gums have a, flavory scent to them. I just
I
don't.
was wondering
don't
if it
see
was the
that.
strong smell of the gum itself. I mean, it's a very minty.
That may be a repellent. And I don't know what would make you think that the juicy fruit gum would cause the mole to choke to death. Because they're a mammal.
Yeah.
And so their stomachs are similar to ours. So when they chew that juicy fruit gum, it should,
Pass.
get in that
Go right on through
acidic nature of your stomach and, go through the process. And, they might develop a habit. They may, chewing juicy fruit. But
All right, Mr. Roger. There you have it from Mr. D. Here's our last question. Quickly, something is eating small holes on the leaves of my pepper plants. What could it be, Mr. D?
flea beetles.
Flea beetles.
Flea beetles is what I think
Yeah.
it probably is. And carbaryl is the only thing in the Red Book, the last issue of the Red Book. Fenvalerate was in the earlier issue this spring, but carbaryl is about the only thing you put out there. But the flea beetles are very common. But usually more of a problem earlier in the season.
Yeah, if I say it's early.
Yeah. But,
Okay.
but carbaryl, we'll take them out.
Real for the flea beetles.
7.
All right. Thank you. We're out of time. Be sure to connect with us. We'll send you weekly email updates about Family Plot. Just go online to WKNO.org and sign up under Get Local Show Updates. The email address is familyplot@WKNO.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.